And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we're going to continue our conversation. We've been doing we started out calling it, Gravity in Games. Now I think we're calling it Monsters Need Coins. But basically, we're continuing our development series where we're building a clone of They Need to Be Fed 3, which is a fantastic little game that includes hopping between blocks and avoiding spikes and feeding yourself to plants. It's kind of a weird little mishmash of psychology, but it's a lot of fun. And we've already had three hangouts on it, where we've defined the game, we've added the blocks, we've created gravity, all these things, and when I say we, I mean Ed, and and so today we want to go into building characters and actually doing some level work, reloading levels and stuff like that. So thanks for joining us, and if you haven't watched the previous Corona Geeks, you definitely need to do that. You can find them all at youtube.com/Corona Geek. That is your best starting place, I think, for catching up on the reruns. The replays, instant watches. What's the term? All right, joining us today on today's panel is Dr. Brian Burton down in Abilene.
Hello.
Ed Marina at roaminggamer.com.
Hey.
And Dr. Burton is at Burton's Media Group, by the way. We've got Kevin at cburngames.com.
Yep.
I'm going to add Sergey to lurg here to the broadcast. Hello, Sergey. You can find him at spiralcodestudio.com. Hello, and then we've got Stephen Johnson from evolvestudios.com joining us all the way down below the border. So thanks, guys, for being here. I appreciate it. Oh, and Sergey's gone.
Sergey doesn't like us.
He'll be back. You guys let me know when he comes back so I can add him back to the broadcast.
I might.
I
might not.
So, you know what? There he is. One of the things I think I want to do moving forward with the show is just hit the start button and just talk, right? Because we have some of the best before and after show conversations before the start button even gets going. Just a moment ago, we were talking about ads and how they affect things, and then we were talking about big data, and it's just amazing. So I really appreciate you guys being here. It's always a lot of fun to talk. Any announcements before we start the show?
Yeah, quick. I'll just screen share here.
Okay.
Anyways, where is it? So, for those people who are used to getting my help in the forums, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you're all going back to school, because I think that's what's happening. I've noticed. I don't know if you guys have. I know, Charles, you don't watch the forums as much, or you said something about not watching the forums or using the forums that much. But anyways, I keep a very close eye on the forums, and I've noticed a serious decline in the usage. And, of course, I didn't think of it until this weekend, that it's everybody going back to school. So, having said that, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that there are fewer questions in the forums and commit myself to completing at least one of my goals. Actually, I've already committed. I've already finished more than one of my goals. But one of my goals for this year was to finish 26 games. So, I have thus far finished, well, I said games. I'm going to spread that out to games and apps. And I'm waving at the screen like you can see me, as usual. I always do this. I've finished 9, not including this one here, which was last year. And I have my 9 count. I get to count 9 because I redid one of my old games for Amazon Underground, which it's not showing yet because it hasn't gotten approved, but I'm going to assume it will get approved. So anyways, that's what it is. So you should be seeing a bunch of announcements from me on new games. And everybody should, of course, harass me if I don't get my games done. I've only got 17 more to go in 3 months, right? So I'm good, no problem.
Yeah, it's more than 3 months. I mean, it's what, three and a half, three and three quarters. I mean, you're good. You can do it.
I'm good. I'm good to go. So it looks better when I look at it over on iTunes. Of course, half of these are old games. But
right.
Anyway.
I think that's a good goal, though. I mean, here's the thing. Even if you fall short, all you get is 14 games published between now and the end of the year. Will it really be that bad? right?
Yeah.
Even if you get 5
games that work.
Yeah, even if you get exactly, even if you get 5 more done, right? I mean, it's the I think just having a goal is a great
Yeah. So
starting point.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's you do this. I get this far, and I'm like, man, I've been so tuned and focused to doing all these other things that I didn't achieve this goal. I didn't get to do the one thing that I really wanted to do, which was make games. So
Yeah.
now I get to make games.
Well, one of the previous
Well,
one of the previous Corona Geek games that we had on, I can't remember what month it was, last month or the month before, was made by a college student. So, it makes complete sense that people are going back to school.
Yeah, and Ed, that's going to be very short-lived in the forums. I mean, it's just the very beginning of school that it's going to decrease. Now we're starting to give assignments. And so you're going to see that uptick then for how do I do
as long
this.
as they don't come in like that one forum post where they all seem to ask like a homework question.
That's probably going to be very common for a little while.
Yes, I'm more than willing to help you guys with that for some monies.
Yeah,
I'll do your homework for money.
I can't.
I don't mind if you cheat yourself. That's fine.
I can't remember what app this was, but I know what it is. They're selling textbooks. It's a site that sells textbooks, and they actually have a part of their service where you can submit your questions, and then within an hour or whatever, somebody will reply to you with the answer. I'm thinking, God, great.
I know.
Well, you know what? That's all fine though. But come test day, somebody's the metal hits the whatever, the rubber hits the road.
Well, yeah, come test day. You're right. But the only thing that bothers me about that is that if the people who manage to still get through by cheating, and then they block somebody else's opportunity because they cheated, that's not
right. Right. Yeah,
well, I have very evident when they get out. But
everybody will get their just dessert. That's all.
That's
right. Yeah, you can never stop that. That always happens no matter what, whether you're writing the answers on your
Although
leg
you might
or whatever.
choose not to add to the problem by helping them for money.
Free markets, man. Free markets.
Let's call it
that makes everything all right.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually what they're calling it on the thing. Is they're calling it tutoring, and you can get a tutor. You can actually get someone online that you can review your work with and stuff, and then they have this next level, which I like to think of as Cliff Notes on steroids, Anyway, all right. Anybody else?
I got a question for Sergey. I just thought of this. Sergey.
Yay, questions.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about you. Don't worry, it's a good thing. I get people who come to me and they ask me, "Hey Ed, will you do this thing for me?" And sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no, and I think, I bet Sergey would be a better choice for this. So Sergey, what's the #1 place where I can direct people without giving them like your email address? Direct them where they can get in contact with you in a formal way. Like, do you have a landing page someplace you would like people to go to, like your home page, or?
I have on my website the page that's called Hire Me. And how does it look like? I have there. Oh, I need to update it. I have their comments section below, so people can comment there, or they can ask me on Facebook. Probably a better idea.
Okay. What if I just direct? Okay, so this is the way it goes. I get emails, random emails. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. No, I can't. I don't do that kind of work. But I think I know a guy who does. And then I'll just say, here's a link. Go ahead. This is Sergey. Here's his page. Go here and contact him.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I need to set up something like formal feedback page where people can ask direct questions to me, because I have like accounts on my freelance portals. I have Twitter. I have
I know you got multiple
locations,
and I'm like never sure where to point them. So.
Yeah, I need one single one. That's a good
I'm
point.
good with the one I can remember. Just one. I can only remember one thing.
I must make it.
All right, Roger that. I'll direct them to your Hire Me page.
There you go. I'll go ahead and put that on the screen for everyone who's watching later on. It's I have to say, Sergey, when I look at the top there, I see Spiral Code Studio, and then I see a couple of your apps, and then the Hire Me, and it almost sort of all blends in, right? You almost don't see that Hire Me almost needs to be a button, right? It needs to stand out that says Whoa, hire me.
The little guy.
If that's your goal.
Give me your jobs.
Right, Chuck?
When I get more time, I will update my website. I need to make a menu between support and between the header with all the normal categories of the website, like my games, my something, and other stuff.
I think that's a great idea, though.
Something.
I think that's a great idea, though. Never say no. Just either refer it out to somebody or raise your price. Either one of the two.
Oh, you're a man after my own heart.
Just
I
never
could do
say
that
no.
for you. $1,000 an hour.
That's right. Well,
I could do anything pretty much for $1,000 an hour. Because you know what? I could take half that money and hire somebody else to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we all know people like you're saying. Sergey is good at things, so pass it on. So good stuff.
Yeah, find somebody for $1,000 an hour and give me $100 an hour.
Well, I don't think I'm going to pass on the $1,000 an hour jobs to you, buddy. Somebody comes to me for the $1,000 an hour.
You can take 90% of that.
That's my job. I'm taking it.
So what we're really talking about is Ed's taking the $1,000 an hour jobs, and then the ones he doesn't want to do, he's going to pass on to Sergey. Got it? Okay, good.
Yeah, they say I can only afford $10 an hour. Don't worry, I will direct them to you, man. You get to say no after that.
Awesome.
I'm joking.
Yeah, when people ask me something, I sometimes refer to your website as well.
Okay, well, that works.
Yeah.
Speaking about announcements, have you guys incorporated the Toast notification plugin into applications? Because it must be in every application, because it's so awesome.
Not yet, but I saw that it's out there. It's in the store. It's ready for people to use.
Yeah, use it. It's really great because sometimes you see an application and something like, "Hey, you have an update." Okay, that's boring. That's old style. Such notifications should be non-interruptive. And my next plugin for this month would be NFC. NFC has several ways to work. I will incorporate for now the basic one, the one that is most really requested, which is reading NFC tags that are called NDEF tags. So I will implement that, and I hope it will be done if I'm lucky, it will be done this week. Because I don't have a device with NFC on hand, so it's kind of hard to test it.
Gotcha. So you got so there's Toast, and then there's the QR scanner. You got that,
yeah. And
then you're going to do NFC.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Another plugin for WK Social Network is ready and submitted to the store. It just Michael Corona needs to check it working by himself. And once he makes it, it will be available as well in the store.
Excellent. I love seeing all these plugins pop up in the store. Just seems like it's growing by the day. For everyone who's listening, go out to the Corona Labs website, then go to the resources up on the menu, and then go to Corona plugin directory, and there's a ton of stuff there. I know that Jason's put something out, Sergey's put something out, Stevens put something out. It's just growing.
Speaking about off-topic resources, we still don't have a link from the website to our IRC channel. Nowhere.
On the website, on the from the Corona Labs website, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's no link to IRC channel.
It's probably just buried someplace, because I know that if you go to
you can go directly /IRC, but
coronalabs.com/IRC.
Nothing goes to this page from other pages.
Okay, I'll mention that because I know that it used to. It probably just got lost in the shuffle. But yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great resource, IRC for sure. So yeah, if you're interested in that, if you're in that zone to do those types of things, go to coronalabs.com/IRC, and everything you need to know is right there on the page. There's even a link to a web client that you can click on and then put your name in, and jump right into the IRC. So cool. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? I've got. Let me see here. I got a couple of things. I'm just going to pull it right up here on the screen. So John Howard asked if anybody has feedback on text candy. The expressive particle widgets and text candy and particle candy and all that kind of stuff like that. Does anybody have any feedback on using these third-party particle systems with graphics 2.0 and what kind of performance?
I haven't used the text candy. I used the particle candy, and I found it really nice and easy to use. I didn't notice a performance degradation, but it's more of a special effect in the app rather than continuously shooting off.
Okay. Yeah, I've used particle candy and didn't like you say, and didn't have any problems with it. I wasn't trying to really push the limits of it. I wasn't doing like
right.
Was it Hopico by Laser Dog? Those guys are like really pushing it. I don't know, and then I think they're doing their own in-house particles. So
yeah,
You have a bunch
you're talking to the guys who are pretty much like, yeah, I could use that, or I could just write my own.
right.
I know exactly the thing. The one effect I need. Theirs is a
Right.
great solution for multiple choices, lots of options. Beautiful, but
and made something for particles. Is it right?
sir.
You have made a module application to develop particle
I made
effects.
little things for my own personal poor man's or lazy man's particles. Depends on what I need.
Okay. Well, there was kind of timely at the same time came in a blog post over at Start Apps blog. I'll put a link in the show notes, but here's an article. It talks all about adding particles in your games, and it was published at the end of August here, and it kind of looks at all the different particle engines and stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, go check it out. It's got particle candy on here and CBFX and all those types of things.
Yeah, I was just going to say that both of those particle candy and text candy they're old, but they are both worth. I think they're worth getting just to see how they were coded.
Well, yeah, I think they're old in the respect that they've been around for a while, right? Not
Yeah, I don't mean old and sort of like
stale.
dusty. What I mean is they've been around for a while. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
They're stable.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, they're perfectly functional. You may run into some issues, but you've got the code, and it's a good code. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been using it with graphics 2.0 for over a year now, and not had any problems with using like I said, the particle candy. I've just not had a project that required the text candy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll put a link in the show notes because this app, or this blog rather, has they kind of take you through the solutions, and then they kind of take you through creating a project with them. So it's not just sort of like, yeah, I thought it was really really good. Had a good beat, but I couldn't dance to it. It was like, here's a whole app. I mean, along with sample graphics and everything. So.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at you. It's got a good beat, but I couldn't dance to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you get that, I know how old you are.
You know how old you are.
Yeah. Hurt me. Oh, that's it. I'm hanging up.
Also, there's a couple of I wouldn't say a couple of new books. There's a new book out, Corona with Lua. It's written in Korean, so if Korean's your thing, then this book would probably be for you. Definitely, I don't do Korean, so it would be a beautifully written book that I would just look at.
What I want to know is how the heck you found this out.
Well, one of the Corona ambassadors in Korea, we stay in touch with them, and they published a new book. So it's been kind of like in development for a while, but now it's out and available. So there you go. I thought I'd mention it. I know we have a lot of people in the community from all around the world, and a lot of people do tune into the show, even though it may not, they may, the primary language may be Korean. So I just thought I'd bring it up. All right, let's enough of that. Let's get on to our game stuff.
Oh, I suppose you want me to talk?
If you would.
Oh, okay. I guess I could do that. Let me get this. Okay, so what are we doing today? I was going to lead in there with something you said, and then I couldn't remember what it was. So pretend that I was clever just now and lead in. There we are. Yeah. So what were we going to talk about? We're going to talk about level builders. We're going to talk about actually the builders that go into making the objects. Can you see my screen first of all? I see it, but just want to make sure
Yes.
you.
Yes, Ken.
Okay. So on the previous session where we talked about the code, the week before last, we talked about how to load level files, and we talked about these files that had the 3 sections in them. And we talked about Game Lua, which then used Level Loader. And when you went through this whole sequence of events, we talked about how you would load a level, and it would start off. Let me go back to the editor here. It would start off as just a bunch of tables with some markers in them, tokens, and then eventually what you get is a table with a bunch of subtables where each table subtable would have an X and a Y. It would have a type, round, square, that would tell us the object we're building. And then maybe a subtype that would tell us some additional details, like for the spikes or the coins, which side of the block is that going to be on, the top, the right side, the left side, or the bottom. But what we didn't do is we didn't dive into the builders. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through one builder, and then we're going to examine the other builders by just looking at the game, and then I will quickly take you through the journey of how to add your own builder. Because what I really want people to do is to see how easy this is and to be able to create their own objects. Because what I got in here so far is most of the things that I think you'd need to make a basic game. But there's always other ideas that people might have, and I'd like to see them try to do that on their own. So, having said that, let me first take you on a tour here. If you downloaded this last week, or if you download it today, what you're going to see is you've got the game in a flat version, which is going to be in the folder Game under I Can Make That, They Need to Be Fed App. So game is just the game code, no harness, doesn't have any menus or anything like that. But there's also a folder called Framed Game, which is the same code, but it uses Composer and some other code that I added. And what's going on here? Oh yeah, it always it would help if you, yeah, sorry. Okay, this adds, let me do it again. It adds a splash screen, and as you alluded to, we needed to call this something, and I didn't want to call it They Need to Be Fed the Clone or something like that. So I'm calling it Monsters Need Coins, because there's monsters and coins. I was very creative. So we got a splash screen. It's got soundtrack, sound effects, and those are turned on in the frame. The sound effects are also in the game, but I turned them off because I can't stand listening to noise music over and over when I'm developing. When it comes up here, it's got a menu with up to 32 entries for the levels. We currently only have 4 levels. You can click on the options thing here, which is lets you select music on, sound effects on and off. That part's not hooked up. You can play with it if you want, but I haven't hooked it up yet. And then we got level 1, which we've seen before. Level 2, which has got some components in it. Can you hear that music bleeding through? Because I will turn that off in a second.
Hey, go ahead and turn it off.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of annoying. This is exactly what I'm saying.
It's just because it's competing with you.
Yeah.
Is this a soundtrack from what's his name? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Incompetech. Yeah, the site is Incompetech, and the name is. Might always forget. Yeah, put me on the spot. Good job.
Oh, sorry. Incompetech. That's good.
Yeah, good enough for now. The credits are in here. Okay, so level 1 we've seen. Level 2 is basically just like level 1, except now we've got more spikes and more coins. You'll notice that I forgot to mention this, that we used to have a counter here, and this is true for the flat version, for the framed version. I replaced that with a visual HUD that shows the number of coins you've collected versus the ones you still got to get. So as we get more, these turn gold, and there's 2 whitish, silverish ones, which means we've got to collect those 2 to complete the level. And let's go back. Level 3 adds a new element, which is a It's a round block that when you walk on it, it starts to, it's got a little timer on it, and then after 10 seconds, it disappears, and then you gravitate towards the nearest object. So you've got elements in your level which only last for a certain amount of time. And then my favorite is I added a bunch of track following elements in the game. So you got all these different styles of objects that follow tracks. And if we look at the level that goes with this, that's level 4. Again, it's just as simple as putting in a marker. So H3 is a horizontal track type 3. And there are 6 types of horizontal tracks and 6 types of vertical tracks. And the types basically what they tell you is how wide is the track? Is it 2 units wide or 3 units wide? And then which direction does it start moving? Left to right or right to left? So it's very simple. Sergey looks like he's got a question. No, okay, I'm looking down, sorry. Okay, so anyways, let me get this out of here.
So as you were demoing that new feature with the block that disappears,
yeah,
I was thinking that's a puzzle game. Imagine a grid of round circles that have different colored dots, right? Each dot's a different color, and then you have to jump from dot to dot before they disappear, and then figure out your way to the end, right? Your classic puzzle. Your maze type puzzle or whatever, but with these time sensitive dots. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. That's I mean I do a semi-okay job in this demo, but when you play the actual game, it's really a challenge sometimes to get through there and get all the coins and figure out the right sequence and everything.
Because I would imagine that once you've touched the dot, you start the timer, right? So as soon as you touch
the dot, the timer starts.
So if you decide you want to go back, you better do it in a hurry because
So I mean that's like this one here. It's times that you've got to hurry up. Whoops.
Yeah.
And I'm toast.
But if you need to go back, yeah, you're like, okay, I can go back for a little. My dot's gone.
Yeah. Otherwise you get stuck at the top. But the good thing I noticed about this game, I'm going to call it our implementation, is we have a very unique kind of air control, so you can really kind of like abuse this system to navigate around the world.
I'm all about getting credit for things I didn't do. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so how do we do this? It's very simple. Let's go back to the flat game, and let's take a look at some code. So we start here, levels like this. They go through game. They go through level loader, they come back out, and at the end of the day, we have tables that have entries in them. Knowing the entry, for example, square or spikes, we know the builder that goes with that. So if we look, let me get back to the right folder here. If we look in the scripts folder under builders subfolder, you're going to see 9 different builder scripts. Actually, after our session today, there will be 10 because we're going to make one together. And we have coins, we have HPath, monster, player, and round, and then we have some other ones. Now, the simplest of these, the first one I ever made was round. And round is nothing more than a circle that sits in a location. It doesn't move, it doesn't rotate, doesn't do anything special. So that's the one we're going to examine because it is the simplest. If you want to look at the most complicated one, look at player. But I suggest starting with round, then look at square to see how that's different, and then perhaps look at timed round, which is the round one with some additional code in it to make it disappear. Then if you want to see how the things take advantage of the subtype, you could look at coins, which places a coin and looks at the subtype and places the coin on the top, on the right, on the bottom, or on the left side, and so on and so forth. But since we're looking at round, let me bring it up. The format of this file is extremely simple. All of these are modules, and so at the top of the file I've got my usual copyright statement, and then they require one file at least, which is common. Now common is a module that contains all of the settings for the game, and basically any variables that I wanted to have visible all over the place. So it's sort of like my personal global container. So instead of using global variables, I put them in common, the module, and then I just use it all over the place. After that, we do our traditional create a table, call it anything you want. I called it builder. Now builder will be the container in a sense that will hold the references to the method create, and we will return builder, and then that table reference is what is passed back to the other scripts that need to access this function or this method. And then as far as these go, most of them have just create, and that's it. Now some of them may have some other code, like player, as I said, much more complicated. It has some local functions and stuff like that. So you're going to see a much longer file. But as you can see, the builder for round is only 52 lines long, and that's with some blank lines and plenty of comments. And the way it goes is after we've created the table, I attach to that table a function called create, and all of the create functions have the same signature. They take a reference to the layers object, which, if you remember, is a display group that contains references to all the different layers in our game. Underlay, content, and overlay. It takes a reference to the table that contains the level definition. So data is the table that contains all of the entries for, I'm sorry, no, it contains, data is the reference for the current entry that we're building. And then pieces is all of the entries for the entire level. Now the reason I did that is most of the time I don't use pieces for anything. But on occasion, I might want to put a piece in the table, or I may want to look at the pieces in the table. So I need to have that. For example, whereas this builder creates an object, and it puts that object in the pieces table. And if you remember, the pieces table is only for platforms. It doesn't contain the coins. It doesn't contain the spikes. We use this table later in player, and player looks at all of the entries in the table. It finds the object in the table that is nearest, and it says that object is my gravity object. So I've made all of these create functions with the same signature so that there's no question of how to lay them out and how to call them. You call them all the same way, and you know this is what you're getting each time. So of course, if people are going to make changes to this game and later they need more information, just be sure that if you add an argument here for, like, I don't know, you make up some table of my settings. Well, go ahead and modify all of the builders and call them all the same way. You don't necessarily need to use this data, but because the builders are supposed to be sort of generic, you want to have the same signature for each of them. Once we get into the create function, it's very simple. All I do is I create a variable called a piece, and then I step through here and I look in common and say, are we using nice graphics, or are we in debug mode? How are we doing this? And in this case, I'm saying, are we using nice graphics, or are we just using our plain Jane circles and squares? So if you're confused, if people don't remember, let me bring up common, and I'll just change this so you can see what happens.
And this goes back to building in your playtesting.
Yeah, so this goes way back to episode 1 of our discussion on this. Let me undo my changes here. All right, so right now we're using nice graphics. But if I go into common and I find the nice graphics, here it is, I find this and I say false. Now we're no longer using nice graphics, and I reload the game, assuming that I haven't got this selected again. Then we get circles and squares, and that's pretty much it. Some of it still looks kind of nice. I mean, as we've gone along, some of these things don't have the debug features, but if you remember the first time we did this, we had very few game objects. We had basically the round, the square, and the player. But now all we got is circles.
Which makes me think that you could easily build in themes to the game.
Oh yeah, you could
and those could
do that.
And those could be in-app purchases.
Exactly, that's a great point. So right now, here's our generic builder. It takes 3 things. Well, what if you had themes? You could pass in a themes table and current theme, or you could have common contain a reference that says theme number 2.
Yeah.
And then you could just pass in the theme data, or it could be part of common.
And I almost said there that could be an in-app purchase, but then I'm thinking a second thought it would be a better as a rewarded, whatever you call it, or like a rewarded perk, right? Yeah. Watch watch a video and get a theme, get a different theme. So
watch a video, get a hat.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. It doesn't have to be an entire theme, right? It could be pieces and parts. I know. I say that because, my 15-year-old plays console games, and he's as much into the strategy and the action as he is the pieces and parts of the clothing and the pieces and parts of the gun and the pieces and parts of the storyline. So being able to mix and match that and make it something that you could like extend through your own gameplay would be pretty appetizing, I think, to most young people.
Yeah, I mean,
to use that term, most young people.
No, people like or as you referred to me earlier, the old people. Thank you so much.
The whippersnappers.
Yeah, whippersnappers. Okay, so having decided if we're going to make it look nice or not look nice, we go through one of these two bits here, and it's real simple. What we do is, if we're making it look nice, we create a new image direct. We use some specific texture out of our images folder, and then we use settings out of common. So in this case, block sizes are standard for the sizes for all the platforms. So because we're making a circle, but we're using an image, we're going to make basically an image rect. So if you were to look at this, as really a rectangle with some transparent bits, and then the circle, and it's going to be the width of a block and the height of a block. And then if you'll recall, when we parsed through these tables, they had what? They had the type, they had an X and a Y position, and a subtype. So we take that data X and Y, and we position our object. So this builder function is getting called for every time we see one of, let me find one of these in our subtables, our list of things that are in the level. So for every one of these, this builder gets called. And for the time it gets called here, the X and the Y are going to be 480 and 400. It might be a little bit hard to read on the screen. So X and Y are set to 480, 400. Or if we were doing what I think of as the more ugly version, we would just make a circle, give it a radius of half the block size, because that makes sense. Change the stroke and the color. And because we specify the X and the Y in the call, we would do that right here, data X, data Y. So at this point, we've got the object. It's been placed in the right level. It's in the right position. Then we just need to do some other things. Most of this stuff here is sort of like bookkeeping. You could almost delete this and completely ignore it. I did this because I wanted to give you guys some more feedback. So this section here, if the debug flag is enabled,
I thought that was debug was in English. Oh, sorry.
No, debug English. No, debug enabled. I'm a big fan of short names. Oh, I keep selecting the same thing. I got to do that. So with debug enabled, we get all these little markers and feedback and stuff. We get the arrow that tells us this is the direction of gravity. We get the little lines that show us the tangential vectors to gravity. The distance from our player to this block and to this block, so we know that the distances are working. This one's been shaded green. It says that's our gravity source. No, now this one is our gravity source. So these are all those things from episode 1. That business is done here. So for our round character, this little bit right here is the label, which is these red numbers. So that's all that is. You could just as well delete that. And this is what, oh, I forgot. No, you can't really, I take it back. You shouldn't delete that because I'm using it elsewhere. Yeah. Okay.
I love those sounds.
So
you can, oh, never mind.
Okay, so the point is the meat so far is this part right here. We basically made a circle, or we made an image, and we placed it somewhere in our level. Of course, this game uses physics, so what do we do here? We require the physics library locally within this builder. I could just as well have put this at the top of the file. But at the time that I coded it, I was just typing along, and it was just as easy for me to do it in the builder. So there's going to be a very little performance difference, but if you did want the best performance, you would do this and then refer to it below for people who are trying to catch me out on performance now. Because there will be somebody out there going, hey, that's like, you're wasting half a millisecond, dude, and you're going to do that 1,000 times? That could hurt me. But you got to remember that these levels get built once in a couple of frames maybe, and the cost of a couple of frames, hopefully just one frame time. You don't go past that. But I can imagine for a very large level that you'd need to be super efficient, so you wouldn't take more than 33 milliseconds or whatever it is to build it all up, so you wouldn't have any hiccups. So physics, we use physics, we add a body. Now the platforms are all static, that is, they don't move around, whereas the player is dynamic. So we say take the piece, make a static body. I give it a density of 1. I don't need to give it any density at all because it's static, so it doesn't really matter. But I was typing along. I think earlier I said I made the round one first. I might have been doing this at the same time I was doing the player, and the player density does matter, so I copied over the body builder for that. No bounce, because I don't want the player, when it hits it, to have bounce. Now here's an important thing. In your game, when you care about bouncing, if you make one object have no bounce and another object have bounce, I do believe you're still going to get a little bounce out of that. You'd be like, hey, why is it bouncing? I made the ground have no bounce. Yeah, okay, but what about the thing that hit it? So if you don't want it to bounce, you have to set the bounce to 0 for both of them, which is what I do here and in the player. You may recall from episode 1, as you can see here in debug mode, the body of the player is really just a circle. And the way we get motion is we have a force pushing this circle down into the current platform. And then if I move to the right, the circle rotates to the right, and I move to the left, the circle rotates to the left, and I use friction to... Sergey just keeps dropping on and off. He must be having a connection problem.
Yeah.
And I use friction to move the circle. So to make sure that the friction motion works properly, I set Sergey's back. I set friction to 1. Now, friction is one of those values where it can be greater than 1 or from 0 to some value as high as you like it. So if you find in your game that your friction isn't good enough, you're not getting enough lateral motion due to friction or slowdown or whatever it is you need, you can make the value higher. For me, friction 1 was high enough. This is a round body, so I simply said that the radius is half the block size being our sort of common value for the size of all these blocks. And then I did my little filtering business here. Now, I'm not going to go through it, but I talked about this in episode 1 or 2. I'm using the Roman Gamer collision calculator because I'm a super, super lazy guy. And all it does is you set it up, you tell it the objects that you're going to have, you give them names instead of numbers, and then you set up the rules. You say player collides with platform, pickup, monster, and dangers, and foot, which is that little business that dangles off the bottom, collides only with platforms. And then having done 4 lines of code, I can now simply say filter, and then I can say filter equals, and reach into the collision calculator and say, get the collision filter, do all the calculations for me for the platform. And it will return a table containing the correct values that goes into filter. No math. Always works 100% of the time. So if you've got a simple collision setup, and you don't want to do the math, or you're tired of making mistakes like I always used to do, then then simply grab the collision calculator and use that. So we've created the body. Again, the meat of it was basically 3 lines to create the body, or 3 lines here to create the body. What I think of as the body. It's the visual representation. And then to add a physics body, so a little bit more meat down here. And then we put the piece into our table, because this is a platform. We put it into our... I could have probably called pieces platforms to make it a little more clear, but pieces is just the platforms. We don't put the player in there. We don't put the coins in. We don't put the spikes in, because those aren't gravity objects. The purpose of this one table here is to be visible in the right places elsewhere so that we can determine our gravity object. So anything in here can be a gravity object. If I had put the spikes and coins in here, they would be allowed to be gravity objects, but we don't necessarily want that. That would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that would be kind of cool. You could put a floating coin somewhere out there and be like, how can I get to that? Well, it's your gravity object. Choo.
Would it be a hidden object?
No, it wouldn't be hidden. I mean, you could put it out there, and yeah, I don't know. It's something you can experiment with, but I bet you money that it would crash the game, because I don't have code in here that says, hey, just a minute ago that piece was there, but then you picked it up and it was removed. What happened to it?
Okay.
That can't. Where'd my gravity go?
Yeah.
Or maybe it would work. It might work. I can't remember.
I was just thinking, classic Mario kind of thing, right? Where you jump around, you hit a coin that you didn't know was there. Then...
Oh yeah. Or you jump up and the platform would. Hey, there you go. Why don't we do that? Okay, we're on it. That's our thing today. We're going to make that today in the next 10 minutes. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do it.
Are we really?
Yeah, we're really going to do it.
I couldn't tell if you were facetious or not.
I'm not joking with you. So the second half of this thing is I want people to make their own. So here we go. We're going to do it. It's really super simple. What I want you to do is do what I'm doing here. Find round, grab it, copy it, paste it, call it, we're going to call this one Charles. This is Charles, because it's Charles's idea. We're going to put it in here in our editor. Okay, before we do anything, go into Game and go to the top of the file, locate round. You don't necessarily need to do it right here, but anywhere in this section, but it's easy for me to do this. Copy round. We're going to call it Charles. And we're going to call this Charles. Okay, so we've loaded the script, which we just copied. Scripts, builders, Charles. And we're going to put it in builders, Charles. So, okay, now that's available within our game builder. Now we go into level loader. And we locate round again. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to create another level block. We're going to call this Charles. Okay, look through your level builders here. Builder files B, R, R. Do we have a C available? No, we don't. Okay, let's choose, let's kind of choose I for invisible. This is one of the weaknesses of my layout here, is having to remember what these tokens mean. So just bear with me. Charles's invisible block. That's what we're thinking here. Okay, so we got builder files I, and then when we see that in our level file, we replace that with the token Charles, which then allows game to select the right builder to build it. So bear with me here. So that's what's happening. And let's go ahead and go into level 0. Let's find it. Levels. So we get down to game, data, level 0, level 1, I'm sorry. Open level 1. Find the platforms. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a new one in here, and we'll just put a note. I is dash Charles invisible platform. And that's just a note for ourselves. I'll propagate that to all the files later. Okay, find the beginning point. So B1, that's where we start. And I'm going to put one of Charles's platforms right here. Just say I1. Now, I know for a fact that this part here doesn't make any difference, so I could have put that. But I've been tending to go with -1. So what this is going to say is choose the Charles invisible platform, then the underbar separator, and then 1. So subtype 1. Well, we don't have any subtypes, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to pass 1 in, but it will make no difference to our code. The reason I've been doing that, just going with 1 even if the subtype isn't used, is because if I feel later like, hey, it'd be really cool to make like the round do something special if it was subtype 2, then I've got it in there already. I can just change some of them to 2 and I'm done. And add the code, of course. Okay, so we got Charles. At this point, having made just those changes, I think, if I didn't make any typos, we should be able to reload. Now we've got the copied version, which is the round circle. So this is our code that we just copied. Same as the builder for this one, but now it's in a different file. So what we want to do is we want this to start off invisible, but if you jump, and as soon as you touch it, we want it to go boop and like be visible. That's how I'm reading this, and that's what we're going to do this time. So let's go ahead and go in here, and all we got to do is add some code, a piece. I'm going to use alpha instead of visible. And then what we'll do, very simply, is we will add a collision listener. So we'll say a piece. I'm just randomly putting this. So let me explain a little bit what I'm doing here. This is the part where we create the visual object. So each of these segments here, one of them will run. Only one will run. And at that point, a piece will contain a reference to a new image rect or a circle. So at this point, I'm going to say make it visible. So it starts invisible, sets the alpha to 0. If we rerun at this point, jump, and now we got an invisible circle we're running around, right? But that's not exactly what we want. What we really want is we want it to kind of pop into view when we jump on it and go, hey, that's pretty cool. So then you go, we want to add a collision listener. We got to do that after we add the body. That's the best time to do it. You could do it before, because all this code will get executed. It'll get sort of like set up, and then in the next frame it takes action. But I kind of like to do things in the logical order. So after we add the body, then we'll say a piece. Sorry, I hit the caps lock. Collision equals function self event. You can probably hear me typing, and I apologize for that. So what we want to do is on the began phase, if the alpha is 0, we want it to fade in. So if began event.phase equals began and self alpha equals 0, so it hasn't changed yet or even started to change, then end. And for safety, the way I always set up my collision listeners when may have other listeners out there is I always return false, which is kind of contrary to the way other people do it. But what this does is it says, hey, I did what I needed to do, but go ahead and propagate this collision listener. If you've got more, propagate it. I don't want to block other collision listeners for this event from executing. So if I return false, and this is the first one that gets called, and there are other listeners, then the other listeners will still get called. But if I return true here, then the other listeners may not get called, and you may get like weird behavior, like, hey, why is a jump not working? Or some other collision event that you expected to occur suddenly isn't getting executed, and your game breaks. So my tip for people is return false unless you need to stop the collision sequence. Only return true in the case where you want to stop propagating the collision event and you don't want to process it anymore. So I always return true, but in the case where the phase is began and the alpha is 0, I do a transition to and self alpha equals 1, time equals probably like 250 milliseconds, and let's just make it kind of fun. Transition easing, transition equals easing, out, bounce, which then actually, as a tip, whenever you use the out bounce or any of those that have motion at the end, what I think of as motion, you need to add another 500 milliseconds to make it look right, so at least, because otherwise it runs too fast. So let's make that 750 milliseconds. Now what should happen is when we reload and I jump and hit it, oh wait, I forgot that nothing will happen because I forgot to do this. If one could type collision, okay, now we'll get something. So I added a functionality here, a function to grab the collision event. I added the listener code. Then I activate it by saying a piece add event listener. Now when I jump, boop, it fades in.
Nice.
Okay, so let's make that. Obviously, we had no idea that was there, and we had no reason to jump there. So let's give ourselves a reason. Let's add a coin above it. So we're like, well, how do I get to that coin?
Yeah,
So
which is always, that was always the things in Mario. You either accidentally found it, or you were kind of destined to find it, but then that really sort of spurred you to really want to, like, randomly check the rest of the level.
Exactly. So I added the coin. Now, if I did it right, there should be a coin right here when I reload, and there's not. I'm always off by one. I'm not very good at this. I do this every time when I do this on my own.
You didn't carry the one?
All right, one more down, and let that be it. There it is. Okay, now we got a coin. We're like, well, what?
Yeah.
What? How do I get there? Well, maybe there's a bridge over here. There's no bridge over here. What's going on? Oh. All right, so there, in 7 minutes, we did a new piece for Charles.
Yay! Nice.
So that's my point here for people who are watching this. This is really, at this point, very simple. It's easy to create new prototype platforms. And then if you want to create new kinds of pickups, you want to look at the coins. Or if you want to create new danger objects, go look at spikes. Now, one thing that I'd kind of like to do in a future episode, I would like to add turrets. Now, nobody responded when I put it in the forums, so I'm not sure if people don't care. But one of the things they've got in They Must Be Fed, or They Need to Be Fed, is turrets. Later, as you get further along, and then they got these turrets where you're like going around and they shoot at you, of course. And I just thought that'd be kind of cool. So it would demonstrate a whole new set of physics features that people often want to understand how to achieve, which is aiming and firing a projectile. But in addition to that, these would be self-guided projectiles that would continue to try to hit you for a certain period of time. They would change their motion, their aim. They'd be seeking missiles instead of just like shooting in one direction.
I think that would be great to see. I mean,
in fact, we could do both. We could do a simple directed turret that just shoots in a direction, and we could do seeking missiles because they're very similar.
Yeah, I think it would be a great addition, because then people could have an example of that they could pull out and use in their games.
Yeah, and at that point, I think this game would be done enough that people could take it and start to do stuff with it.
So now we've got a level menu when we first start.
Yeah, so we got that on the framed version of the game.
Yeah, was there did we say we could do reloading?
Reloading.
Or is that not ready yet? Or is that not?
Well, reloading is occurring already, but going into how it happens in the next 1 minute probably isn't going to happen.
Okay. Well, we can come back and do that later.
So the code's already in there. So like when you die, here, let's kill ourselves.
It automatically reloads.
It automatically reloads. And actually, I talked about where the code was, I think, in episode 2 or 3. So, so I could point it out again.
So I think
I think what we were going to try to talk about was builders and then checkpoints.
Okay.
Checkpoints are going to be a little different.
Okay. So you still want to do checkpoints?
You know what? I would like to do turrets and weapons first. Things firing at you. A new danger type. Because the checkpoints to me, thus far for our game, not necessary because the levels are quite small.
Right.
So it almost seems more reasonable to just make people do it again.
Okay. And so at this point, is there a mechanism for getting back to the level menu?
Yeah. Except that it's broken. Well, I goofed up. I'll fix it when I go to commit it today. I think I fixed that last week. So what happens is you'll see there's this button, but then I forgot when you load the next level that I need to refloat this button, basically push it to the front. So what happens is this whole scene gets destroyed, and then my layer system's goofed up, and so it's not pushing this button in front. I did something wrong. I need to go fix that.
So it's there. It's just in the background.
Yeah. So what should happen is if I kill myself, boom.
Okay.
It reloaded, and where'd the heck the thing go? Gotcha. I goofed up.
Okay.
I goof up occasionally.
Well, we'll let you. We'll let it slide.
Was there a question there?
Did somebody on the panel have a question?
I want to show you something. I had a little fun. Hold on.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see this. My screen.
Yeah.
Right. So when I reload it, it generates a level.
Oh, you generated a level. Oh, we were talking about this last week.
Yeah. So it's automatically populating the fields. So every time you reload it.
So you've taken the source code and you've put in automatic level generation.
Well, it's just a math random basically. It selects a random letter and then a random number. And
So
then
now what you need to do is put in rules for what can't be next to what.
Yeah, I know, but I spent 5 minutes on doing it.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, see, I'm very happy with the fact that you were able to do that, because that tells me that the level base for how you generate the tables is it's straightforward. I mean, it can be generated. That means that it's relatively straightforward, so that it's not totally impossible to generate or create a level automatically.
Yeah, well, I can show you this quickly how to do it, but it is really messy. But so here on top, I've got 2 strings with different values. So one for the platforms and one for the dangers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just goes here, pulls a string, and then goes, pulls a random number or letter out of that string, puts the underscore in the middle, and then a random number at the end, and then throws it out.
Of course, if you wanted, this is version 1.0, which is the messy version.
Oh yeah.
But having gotten it like this, then you could actually do a one-liner generator function for each of those.
Oh yeah, you could.
Or like a loop or something. And let me guess, once you've generated, you go back through and select one, and you change it to the start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just randomly choose one as the start. Sweet.
That's very cool.
One thing could you show it again?
What, the code or the level?
Right.
Yeah, hold on.
Do you always fill every one, or do you occasionally have blanks?
Oh no, it's all filled now. Like I said, I just spent literally 5 minutes just throwing this together.
You didn't parse it yet.
You could just say don't fill. Well, actually, easy way of doing it is create another empty field and then just assign another letter to that.
Yeah, you could have a blank.
Yeah, just a blank space. Yeah.
You could just put an underbar in your strings there. That would work.
I suppose so. Yeah.
From what I'm seeing. Oh, no. Sweet. Although some of these don't make any sense, but that's all right. It's good.
Yeah. I like the one that
this week is to make a generator that makes completely playable levels, so that then I can sell it. I mean, give it somebody's going to be like, how can I generate these levels so that I can go and steal this and make my game and quickly release it? Because I want to make money.
I liked the version there that had 20 coins across the top.
Oh yeah.
That's an involved level.
It is. Wow. That's pretty neat. All right, well, we'll leave it there then. That's a great example of what can be done with this game. So, like I said, we've gone through 4 different videos, this being the 4th one. So there's 3 others that you haven't seen. You need to go back and watch those. And we will put a link in the show notes to the code, so you can download the source code and pick it apart and spend your 5 minutes improving it and making it something that you want it to be. We'll be back here, I guess, next week then talking about maybe turrets, maybe something else. I'm not sure
turrets,
exactly.
Definitely for sure.
Okay.
For sure, we'll have weapons that fire in a specific direction using the subtype 1 to fire up, 2 to fire to the right, and then assuming I have time, which I'm pretty sure I will, we'll add the turret code. I'll have the turret code, which is going to be not turret code, but a missile firing.
Sort of the autonomous.
An object that fires, and then it will try to keep aiming at you as it moves for a certain period of time before it self-destructs.
Oh, cool! Self-destruction. Nice. That's a bonus. That's like gravy on top. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I just want to say, you said this is a good example of something you can do with the game, but I want to say this is a good example of what can be done in just maybe a couple thousand lines of code, not even that, with Corona.
Right.
As you can see, it goes from we did a lot of work to kind of get here, but then in 7 minutes we took something, and we were easily able to make a new piece in our level, and that to me is the power of Corona and Lua, and just it's hard at first. There's a lot of work to get it all set up, maybe, but boom, you get there, and then it's turning the crank.
Well, you know what I like is that this is an original games. They need to be fed 3. Great job there. They thought everything. You know, they've already worked out sort of the gameplay and the mechanics for us.
Yeah.
But then being able, like you said, being able to take Corona and being able to sort of reproduce or borrow some of those ideas, you know, is great, because then you know, a lot of times we see something and we go, wow, you know, I really don't know how that was made, and it seems like it would be really tough and things like that. But you're proving out that, you know, it's really not that hard. It's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out what are the pieces and how do I want to put them together.
I'm not going to say, yeah. I know I just keep going here, but your point there about their game, I just want to say that they need to get kudos, because we're basically taking advantage of weeks, months of somebody else's trying to figure out how to make a fun game and playing with the mechanics and tweaking things, and I just got to go, oh, that's the speed and that's the motion. I can see how to reproduce that.
Right. So yeah, so definitely kudos to them, and we've linked to them several times. We appreciate, you know, the inspiration. So, all right, well, we'll do that. Then next week we'll do turrets, and then I want to invite everybody to come tomorrow night. Every week we do Corona Geek After Dark.
10 already.
And it's a fantastic. What's that?
10. Number 10.
I know it, and it's a fantastic conversation. I mean, last week was hilarious. I don't know if you guys caught it, but there was a whole conversation about awkward phone calls on the Apple Watch, and it was just hilarious. I thought Alex was gonna. He was like on Comedy Central there or something, just going at it. So it was really funny. If you didn't get a chance, go check it out. Go over to youtube.com/CoronaGeek. We post them there. We haven't added them to the podcast yet, but we probably will. So anyway, come join us. It's a lot of fun. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Have a great week, and happy coding.
Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.